Is gender dysphoria contagious? Can you catch it from others who already have it? And can mental health conditions spread through what is often called social contagion? Today we'll be exploring whether building relationships and community with people who already have gender dysphoria can spark dysphoria in you, or if this is more about the magnetic way that like-minded people just find each other. You know, birds of a feather flock together. This is one of the most sensitive and debated issues surrounding youth and gender dysphoria, so let's shed some light on it today. Welcome to The Metaphor of Gender. I'm Sasha, a therapist, and this is a channel for curious people who prefer deep thinking over dogma. We explore identity, meaning, and how to live life well. In this series, Hidden Roots, we're exploring 7 different factors that can contribute to gender dysphoria. These roots often overlap and evolve over time. Our last video looked at autism and gender dysphoria, and today we're focusing on shared identification, friendships, and community. First, let's be clear about what I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about people with long-standing gender dysphoria who have been transitioning for a while. Now, when they find friends with similar experiences, of course that doesn't cause or contribute to their dysphoria, it simply reflects it. It's not at the root. What we're talking about today is a different scenario. When someone begins to experience gender dysphoria after connecting with trans or non-binary identified people. It's very common now to hear young people say, I didn't have gender dysphoria until after I realized I was trans. Which raises the question, well then how did you realize you were trans before you felt the dysphoria? Now this ties in with an idea we covered in a previous video, the idea that there's no right or wrong way to be trans and that dysphoria isn't even required to be trans. Now, I don't fully agree with that perspective, and I'll talk about this more in a future video, but the point is, a lot of young people question their gender first and then develop dysphoria later, often within the context of community. Now, it's not strange or pathological. It's actually how most people discover much of who they are anyway, through relationships. Let's take a simple example. Amira moves to a new city in 9th grade and becomes friends with Stacy, who's a big fan of classic rock. Amira had previously listened to mostly pop music, but then she starts listening to Queen, Nirvana, and becomes a huge rock fan herself. Now, we would never say that Stacy infected her with her music preferences. This is just how interests form, right, in the context of connection. But gender is much more emotionally charged, so let's consider another example. In a school where kids are often bullied for being kind of different, someone like Matthew often feels out of place, and so he might find it to be a huge relief to join a more welcoming and affirming space, even if it's just as an ally, in like a GSA club or something like that. Each kind word or shared experience builds a sense of belonging for Matthew. He might begin to adopt not just the ideas of the group, but its emotional world as well. Now, identity grows from those experiences, just as Amira's love for certain kinds of music grew out of her friendship with Stacy. On the other hand, different kinds of environments are just much more affirming overall. Some schools or churches actively support LGBTQ youth. Now, in these places, the visibility and celebration of trans identities can also influence how young people see themselves. Humans are shaped by incentives, so when one identity is repeatedly celebrated, it can become more appealing. One young woman told me that she had been struggling with mental health for a long time, and she started to question her gender identity and mentioned it to a counselor that she thinks she might be trans. Overnight, she said, she went from being the weird white girl with problems, her words, to a brave trans kid. Then she spent time in online groups where others were talking at great length about their own gender identities, gender dysphoria, and how badly they wanted to transition. At school, she started to have a lot more body discomfort, and she wanted to start de-emphasizing her female features and present as more masculine. And she was encouraged and celebrated for doing so. So in this social context, what started out as just questioning her identity became a celebration of her new transmasculine persona and developed into full-blown gender dysphoria. Now, like I said, all of us, me, you, everyone, we are shaped by those around us. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. Emotions and behaviors, both positive and negative, can spread from one person to another, even online. This includes joy and enthusiasm, but also fear, anxiety, and sadness. Even disordered eating and suicidal behaviors have been shown to spread socially. And in my work, I've seen that talking with friends about your dysphoria, how uncomfortable you are being perceived as your sex, and other kinds of co-rumination can definitely amplify gender dysphoria. And when we're part of a group, online or in real life, that influence can become very powerful. And not all communities are the same. Healthy communities welcome different perspectives, allow dissent and open dialogue. They support relationships outside of the group and encourage critical thinking and personal growth. Now, in my clinical work, I have seen how some groups focused on identity and gender can definitely support these practices. But unfortunately, sometimes I've seen that gender identity groups can become rigid, controlling, or even quite manipulative. The point is, as people spend time with others, they begin to interpret their own experiences through the lenses of their group. And in this context, communities, relationships, and shared identification can begin to shape gender dysphoria. So just be careful where you spend your time. Ask yourself if your friendship groups, online connections, and communities are healthy and how they've impacted your relationship to yourself. Feel free to comment about your experience with different groups or communities below. I try to read all the comments, and I really love to hear from you all. And if you subscribe and like this video, it really helps me out too. Okay, that's it for today. Keeping one foot in reality and one in possibility. I'll see you next time. And if you want to learn more about the roots of gender dysphoria, click here. This information is meant for educational purposes only and not as a substitute for mental health services.